Welcome to the Next Gen CMO podcast, where we sit down with seasoned CMOs and emerging talents in sales and marketing to explore the wins and occasional losses that shape today's leaders and the strategic maneuvers that can help propel you to the forefront of B2B marketing.
Welcome to the Next Gen CMO podcast. Today, I am so excited to welcome my friend Sangram Vajre to the podcast. Sangram is the co-founder and CEO of GTM Partners, usually called GTM Partners. Which one do we go by?
GTM Partners, yeah.
All right, GTM Partners, a leading data-driven analyst firm that's focused on go-to-market strategies. So he's a recognized speaker, author. I've read his work. I've seen him speak. Both are outstanding. And if you've been at a B2B marketing conference in the past 10 years, you've probably seen him, heard him, talked to him, listened to a podcast, read something about him. So he's a super special guest, and we're so glad to have him today. Welcome, Sangram.
Kelly, it has been a pleasure to get to know you, especially in the recent few months. And it's amazing. I think it's probably the best time to be a marketer.
It is a great time. It's a totally different marketer than 10 years ago and different than 10 years before that and maybe even a year ago. It's changing fast.
Yeah, and it's going to make people who are in the marketing profession really strong, because if they can get through this, they have to throw the playbooks. They have to invent new playbooks. If they don't have any baggage, it's better for them because they get to see how to do this differently. So I feel it is the OGs like us who probably have a lot more to learn. But the new ones that I'm talking to lately, the up and coming one, they're like, oh yeah, they already are thinking ahead of it, and it's really good.
It's pretty amazing. Yeah, I mean, I guess it's resilience, adaptability, flexibility, and maybe a backbone somewhere along the way too.
A really strong one, sure.
That's right. Well, cool. It's been awesome to watch the growth of GTM Partners over the past few years. Tell us about that, because you went from, you were a marketer, then you were a founder, software business, and then you went to an analyst firm now, or you co-founded this one. So how did that journey work?
Well, first of all, I feel like a lot of people would say, like, I should go to a regular therapy, because who goes from a software business to a services business when you know how to do that? Like, that itself is hard enough. Kelly, truth be told, I feel like if I look at all of my history for the last 20 years, especially in B2B, I feel like I've been very fortunate to be part of the marketing automation wave by running marketing at Pardot and then being acquired by Salesforce, and then had the good fortune to start Terminus, which was obviously born in the ABM space. And when I look at both of it, I've already gone through marketing automation, the ABM space, and now go to market. It's very natural transition when I look back. And all along, if there's a thread that I can walk through, I feel like the thread really is, I've always loved building community. I've always loved creating and trying to look around the corner and seeing what's the next thing that might be there. And I've always been very curious about that. And probably the most exciting has been just frameworks. My wife will sometimes say, don't put another framework. This is home. You do that at work. Don't do that at home. But I love frameworks. I look at it. It doesn't solve all the problems, but it kind of gets you 70, 80% of the way. So when I look at all of it, I feel like it really is the thread that connects me and that gets me going is that. And so Go-to-Market Partners, as you said, it's a research advisory firm. We create go-to-market frameworks. We are learning, as everybody is right now. There is no such thing as, oh, this is the way. Everybody's changing it. The market is changing. The time has changed. So it's an incredible time to just say, well, that didn't work. So what is the next new? What is the new way of looking at this thing? This go-to-market motion is fine. What about this? So it's a really, really fun time. I'm enjoying that part of it.
Yeah, I bet so. Well, and because right now, I mean, I'd love to hear your thoughts. I know that Forrester Wave is coming out in a few months, sort of, and they are bringing together, right, this revenue marketing concept of marketing automation and ABM together. Considering that you've worked in both and are now looking at the overall market as well, like, is that where you think the market's going? Like, do you think that's a viable, like, is revenue marketing the future, or is it go to market? Like, is there a difference?
Well, in many ways, revenue marketing is a little bit of an older term. I feel like we all have been hearing about it, talked about it. A lot of platforms have called themselves that. And it doesn't really create that momentum in the conversation. So I feel like ABM did or go-to-market, it actually makes you think about you're going somewhere, you're doing something, it's pulling things. Revenue feels like, of course, we're all here for revenue. Ultimately, that's what business's outcome is. is to serve customers, create value. But so I have mixed emotions around it. At the same time, Kelly, I feel that for a long periods of time, all of us have been trained almost to look at marketing as a siloed function and sales as a siloed function and CS and ops as a siloed function. I do believe that right now, more than ever before, that's coming together. So if it ends up becoming under the umbrella of go-to-market or revenue, from my perspective, I think it's the best thing for the industry because we are all now learning to work more as a team and seeing that all of our successes are built on each other. So it requires that umbrella. So the phrasing of it is questionable to me, but I feel like the fact that it's happening is exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is, you're right. I mean, I think the only way, when I started my marketing career, I was in brand management. I was at CPG, and marketing was billboards and print ads and 2 for $5 end caps at the grocery store or whatever else. Now everything is it's a science. It's not an art anymore, right? There's a data component, there's an alignment component, that revenue is a part of the marketing story, like all the things that have evolved, which don't seem crazy if you're listening to this and you started marketing 5 years ago. If you started marketing 20 or 25 years ago, it's a whole different world to what it used to be. So I love what you're saying about it all kind of converging around this idea of like go-to-market being one big team, essentially. You may have different roles within it, but we're all kind of one big team driving for the same goals.
Yeah, I was, Kelly, fascinatingly, a few weeks ago, I was having a conversation with the CEO of a company close to 100 million. And he mentioned that he, for the first time, he's multiple companies being a CEO. This is the first time he actually said and figured out the compensation for his entire go-to-market team on the same thing. And as I dug in, like, well, tell me how you did that. He's like, well, everybody has, obviously sales compensation is less, and then the OT is much higher. We all get that. But even the marketing and the CS function, they have a little bit higher comp, but the comp and the bonus is very much interesting. So for example, if you're making a 50K, just use that as a number, you could actually make 100K that year if you hit that. So it's not a 5K or 10K bonus. It is like a substantial bonus to connect at the revenue numbers. He said, Kelly, like it was so, he was so happy. His eyes were like, he was like, man, like this change that he made across his go-to-market team, just from a compensation perspective, he no longer is trying to have sales and marketing aligned, because if you're going to make same as much as your salary in revenue at the end of the year, the marketing team, that everybody's like so connected, so working together. So I feel like there is something around compensation. There is something around the right metrics as a business and the go-to-market dashboard or revenue dashboard, whatever you call, that we all need to really fight to be aligned on that. And I don't know if compensation is the only way, but that is certainly something that was very interesting to me, how it all is working out.
Well, it's funny because it's one of those things that you hear as a pain point that gets in the way of alignment is, well, marketers are going to get paid no matter what they do, but we're like fighting for our lunch over here in sales. And so putting everybody in there, I'm sure it ups the game of marketing, because now marketing, it's not just a KPI for a 10% bonus. It's now actually like it's half their salary, just like it would be for market or for sales. So that's really interesting. I'd be interested to see how that works. I wonder how many marketers either quit that or step up and like kill it because they're highly motivated upside, right? I don't know.
Totally. It's going to make either stronger marketers be part of it. It has the downside of everybody's so revenue focused that you may lose the brand and all of it. So he's figuring that part out. But right now, for the last 3 to 6 months that he has been testing it, he is like, I no longer have to ask the basic question, like, where is the revenue coming? Everybody's on the same page and they're focused on the right accounts, and all of those things are happening. So I think he's trying to figure out, is that making everybody think short term or long term? And that's the part that I think when you talked about brand, we all know brand drives demand. So if everybody's already focused on demand and not have the brand and are not at the right places and things that you need to do to be out there, I think you could miss on the long run. So I think there is that unknown of a gap in there. But I think somebody like you who's coming from brand, you understand and you see it, and you've seen the impact of brand on the demand. That is clearly could be amazing.
Yeah, that will be interesting because you would have a tendency to optimize for that last click bottom of the funnel. instead of recognizing that if you're not investing in that full view and actually like the brand and the very top of kind of driving awareness all the way through, then you're going to dry up that bottom pretty quick. So having everybody, even if you're not directly tied to revenue, we're still all driving in the same direction. That's fascinating. That's cool. Well, good. So you have been this year, I don't know how long you've been running them, but you've been doing these go-to-market partners road shows, which I love. I got a chance to go to my first one back in March, right here in Austin. And I love it's the reason why we love partnering with y'all, because the content is so good. And Brian, your analyst leader, whatever his role is.
My co-founder, co-author on my last book, brother from another mother, all of those, like he's in.
Yes. Brother Brian is fantastic too. I think he's got a ton to add. So I really connected with the whole team. It was great to be there. But you're getting a chance because of these road shows, like boots on the ground. You're talking to real marketers here, real use cases, real tech stacks, real challenges they're struggling with. Like, what's been some of your takeaways from those? From how long have these been going on?
Yeah, it's been, so this will be, we would have done about 18 roadshows in the last 3 years in different cities. And what's interesting, maybe 3 things that I can call out of those. Number one, I feel like this is just a general principle for everybody. I feel like I've been talking to so many executives across the board. I get to meet, as a result of the roadshows, I get to meet my customers, at least 40 to 50% of the customers, almost every month, and spend time with them. I feel like the value of that cannot be overstated. Like it's incredible. I feel like in this current economic condition, the chance of you spending quality time with your customers on a regular basis is so important. That's what creates momentum in the deals. That's what creates relationship that goes deeper. That's what allows you to iterate on it, and you would never be surprised if something is not working for your customer or not. So I think everybody should do some form of some way to make be in front of your customers that is much more than a Zoom call. So I feel like that's a big takeaway that I've learned, is like, that's why regardless of what the revenue might come out of it, we will continue to do that because it really connects with the customer. And companies who do that well are going to do better. The other part that we hear all the time is every time companies, when we have, especially at Austin, where you were there, where we had IBM show their tech stack, and it was fascinating. I think people are very open to show their tech stack because they want to figure out what's working, what's not. They want feedback as much as anybody. And everybody in the room wants to understand how do they all work better together. So the story has to be there, was like, well, it's not just showing 20 tech stack. It's like, what are my 4, 5, 6 tech stacks that actually I can use to run my go-to-market? I think that's one of the most common questions we get. So we're very excited about that as it was a way to help companies understand. And the third, and probably the most fun one, is we have this 15 go-to-market problems research that we've been doing. And everybody, when they get that and when they circle their top 3, they're like, you just gave me language to take back and talk to my team. So I feel like people have the similar challenges, small company, mid-sized company, enterprise company. Kelly, across the board, it feels like we all have similar challenges. Smaller teams, lower budgets, tighter pipeline, greater revenue impact expected of it. And so you're having all the same challenges. And once you're able to say, oh, that's actually what the real problem is, and now I can take this back and saying, let's solve for it, I think it's great clarity. And so that's really been a really aha moment for us, is like, we just show that 15 go-to-market problems at every single roadshow, and it works every time.
Yeah, it's amazing. I went in after the roadshow. I think Karthi had sent out the email with all the links, and I went in and I actually requested and downloaded that file because we have our director and above offsite next week. And I was like, this is great fodder to stimulate discussion for us as leaders of the company to wrap our arms around what are the big problems we want to solve this year? Like, what are the 2 or 3 kind of anchors we want to solve? And I even used it, you have the sort of 6 go-to-market buckets as well, inbound and outbound and product specific and all that. And I took that to my team as well and said, hey, we need to build customer retention or new logo acquisition. Like, let's map them to these buckets. Like, what are we doing in each of these areas, if relevant? So there's some great, like, hearty, usable stuff. I think you're right. I think it's the language that makes it, like, you're probably like, oh, I can finally put like a finger on that thing we're struggling with. It's that right there.
Thank you for saying that. And Jason Lumpkin posted a few weeks ago something that connected to this, Kelly. And I wonder what you have been in so many different organizations, see complexity, and as well. So I'm curious your feedback on this. He said something that really hit hard. He said, a lot of times companies think their biggest challenge is going to be the competition in the marketplace. Sometimes you think that the market conditions are a really big challenge. Sometimes you think our pricing packaging is a big challenge, right? Or all of this, or being in the right place in the analyst quadrant is the biggest challenge. But he said the biggest challenge in his entire experience has been, and it really hit home for me, is internal conflict, internal inability to have clarity and alignment and team and trust. We call it the CAP process, clarity, alignment, team. And it just hit, I think, those 15 go-to-market problems and all what you just talked about. I wonder if you feel the same way. It's like, man, we can go run through walls on competition and the market conditions and whatever might be it. If we have the entire executive team just aligned and going at the same place, like we can make magic happen.
Yeah. Yeah. I find it, and I agree. I think I think we certainly get in our own way more than the market does, right? We're tripping over ourselves. What I see it as, especially in these high growth tech companies, is the mindset or disposition of the people. It's not necessarily like a sales mindset or a marketing mindset or a product mindset. It's more of, do you have the appetite for change? Do you have the resilience to kind of maybe do something different than you've done in the past, or kind of deal with a bunch of change and still kind of show up for it and believe it? Do you have the willingness to give away your Legos as you grow, and to take your sort of big purview that you had when there were 12 people and go down to a single function now that you've got, now that the company is quadrupled in size? And I think I feel like those are our own kind of either ego or wiring. And so figuring out how to like recruit the right mix of people that are not necessarily going to align. I think we can all get to alignment on strategy, or at least we can all agree that this is the direction. Whether we totally agree, at least we're going to lock arms and go. But when you have people that are like heels are in the ground and maybe just not moving, I think that's where we struggle. And that can happen, like I said, with any function, any like tenure, any level in the company. It's just a matter of how do you make sure you have the right people who are like on the train, ready to go. Wherever we go, they're going to drive hard. So
it changes big time. I used to have a framework. I still use it for my existing team. I'm curious if it aligns with how you think about. I think about on my team, I need to have dreamers, doers, and drivers. That's how I think about it. Because if I have dreamers, if everybody's a dreamer, then we're all coming up with ideas. Nobody's going to do it. So I try to make sure that not everybody's a dreamer, because I'm a dreamer. So I don't need like 5 more of me. Like I can barely handle myself. Then doers who actually get things done. You can trust them. They're going to make sure it's great. It's amazing. They're going to have a checklist, and they just make sure that it's just done, and you want that. But if everybody's a doer, then you don't know where you're going. It's like you need to some vision casting around it. And then there are drivers who I absolutely love, who wants to make sure everything is done yesterday, and they are trying to make sure everything is done the right way, quickly, and there's a sense of urgency that they have. So I've always found that a team that has a good mix of dreamers, doers, drivers actually ends up becoming a really healthy mix. I'm curious if you have seen that kind of mix as well.
Yeah, and I've certainly seen it. It's one of the conversations. We haven't had it framed like that. Again, you just gave me some new language. I'm going to work into.
There you go. Another framework sound. This is.
I think what we've realized recently or something is, how do we tap into those same goal transformation? I'm willing to grab the deed, make the decision, and run. Versus when you have some really high performing, really awesome doers, it's great. But who's sort of pointing them in the right direction and making sure that it gets over the line? And so, yeah, I've definitely seen that one. And I've worked for some dreamers. And you're right, the dreamers need the doers. So I appreciate that. I'm a driver, probably more so than the other ones. But I value those dreamers on the team. I value those people who can turn like my kind of, rambling kind of ambition and direction into action and go run and do. So I love the framework. And yeah, I think the a bunch of doers with the absence of driver, I think is a big gap.
Yeah, I feel like there's once people understand the team, it changes.
Yeah. I love that. I might map my team to that and see where they fall. Well, cool. So while we're talking about the Go-to-Market Partners Roadshow, you're evolving. We are going to do this together. We're going to be better together, Sangram, because we are evolving this into a go-to-market summit. Tell me about that. That's starting up in the fall this year. Let's hear about that.
Yeah, we are super excited to partner with you. We have Zoom Info, we have On24, Clary, and Gainsight. And so the whole point is that go-to-market is a team sport. So we want to make sure that in the fall, we have marketing, sales, customer success, people come in as teams as opposed to just an individual. So that's part of it. And then every common question we get is that, well, how does that all work well and better together? So we're going to have some of the best, like yourself and Demandbase, be part of this thing because we're going to be very exclusive. We're going to go out and have customers who use this core tech stack better together and tell that story. The strategy is great, but also the execution of it. Actually show here's how we take the data. Here's how we put certain programs on top of it. Here's how we look at it on the customer side so that the entire go-to-market understands how this works and what is their role in it so they can still excel in their individual roles, but they get the full picture around it. So we're excited. It's also going to have research. We're going to have common customers come together and say, well, what kind of results have you seen when you use a combination of Demandbase and On24 and Gainsight and Zoom Info? Like, what is the outcome around it? Because that's when people can start making better decisions around it. So we're beyond excited to partner up with you and some of these team members.
Yeah, I think it's going to be great. I think, some of those we think these people are trying to rationalize their tech stack. They're trying to figure out the right solutions. You and I've even talked about like there's technology partners, and then there's ones like, well, are we competing? Because we have this small business that competes with this small. But you realize that these companies, especially sitting and looking like at IBM's tech stack, since you brought that one up, there's so much robustness in there. We think, okay, if this is what an enterprise is using, large, massive enterprise using to run their business, you see very clearly that there's room for a lot of players here, because the reality is most of these tech partners are not great at everything. They're great at they have a core thing that they're great at. And so sometimes a big tech stack, which may be baffling to a CFO, is really, really necessary to get the best of every solution in there. And so that's why we're super excited about some of those partners. Like we work with, On24, and we integrate with Zoom data and all these things that come together, and to see how these customers, tech stacks evolve through this. So it's going to be fun.
Yeah. And we saw when we started the initial research, we saw that on average, there are about 25 different technologies these enterprise companies are using. And even G2 is a big part of this. And when we started looking at that, well, wait a minute, they are replicating. And Kelly, here is the unfortunate part for almost every single vendor in this. A lot of times the customer would just put them in a box almost. Like, so for example, I think about Demandbase and I think, well, you should be in brand and demand. You also provide data. So you should be in the TRM. You should drive pipeline velocity. So I think what CFOs are looking to see when they approve budget for different technologies, they want to say, well, can you show me that actually helps you in multiple areas? And I think that's what we want to help you tell the stories, that across the entire go-to-market program that you want to run, what technologies integrate better with each other and can actually check multiple areas. The CFO is automatically going to say, oh, I'll bet money on that one because it seems like it can help you with this, and this, and it integrates with G2 and some of the other folks. So great, we're going to get more value out of it. I think that's what the CFOs and CEOs are craving for, is like, are we just using these siloed, or are we actually making much of it by pulling them together? And I think there's a better, bigger story to be told.
Yeah, for sure. That integrated tech stack. And none of us are we may be good at sort of one function, but it's adding value at multiple stages during that entire customer journey. So I think that's pretty amazing. Is that lightning? You're hearing that?
Yeah, that's lightning. You could hear like it's raining and lightning over here right now.
That's awesome. Those are my favorite work days, when it's thundering outside. Cool. So I see you all over LinkedIn, which is great. And I don't know if that's always been the case, or if this has been sort of your new era of GTM or thought leadership. But tell me about your kind of approach to influencer marketing from that perspective and being a voice in this space.
Well, it started really in 2015 when we co-founded Terminus. In that time, I was the only marketer, and both of my co-founders were tech people. So how are we going to be in the marketplace? And we were like in Atlanta, like it didn't make any sense. So I just started writing stuff, Kelly. And what's really interesting in 2014, 2015, like nobody was doing this on a regular basis. That was kind of a new thing, or people were not using LinkedIn for that. So it really allowed us to really grow understanding of the problem in the marketplace, do quick polls, understand what it is, and really put us on the map. And that made me think like, whoa, this is fun. And honestly, it's the best way of testing messaging. So I would sometimes write posts to just test a new idea that I have. And if I get enough engagement on it, then I will take it to my team. Being a dreamer, I'm like, I try all my dreaming ideas sometimes on LinkedIn. And if it works, and if I see a thing, and sometimes those are bad ideas and nobody really engages or nobody really wants to it. I'm like, okay, I know. So I just started doing that on a regular basis. Now it has become a rhythm for me. I would just have like 2 or 3 times a week, I would just put some thoughts and ideas around it. And it's consistent, and just being consistent has been really helpful. It also is a great way of connecting with people without necessarily having a Zoom call. So I could just tag you on a couple of posts like I've done in the past and say, Kelly, what are your thoughts on this one? And you would generously drop your comments on it, and you would share that. And then it also, oh, Kelly, you should talk to, so-and-so CMO. And so to me, it also goes back to what I love is connecting and community element of it. So I've been focused on that. But at the same time, I've just focused on one thing. I've not focused on Twitter. You will not find me on Instagram. You will not find me on any other TikTok or anything. I just say, well, this is the one lane I'm choosing. I'm going to be consistent here. I'm just going to share, make it valuable for people to engage with me. And I'll personally engage with it. I won't just post and go away. I'll actually engage on the comments on a regular basis. And I think it has helped me build multiple businesses just doing that very consistent.
Yeah, well, and I think what's cool about it is it's super authentic, right? When you always sign it, love Sangram, which always makes me laugh, but I like it because it's just your sort of call sign. And you mix personal and professional out there. I mean, a lot of it's professional, of course, and around go to market, but it's also, you put stuff around your kid and his new J's and like, sort of that unboxing process. And I mean, you put some cool stuff around that, or when you're, I don't know if it was on LinkedIn or maybe I saw it at the summit with your daughter writing the book and all of that. So, and those stories come to life out there. I think that also, like that authentic voice, I think is really endearing to folks.
Yeah, I feel like that's the best part of me is my family, my kids. So like without that, I feel like it would be a boring Sangram, I feel. And I've always felt more comfortable presenting something when I have a story for my family or something. And we all have it. We absolutely all have all of those things. I find myself, my nerves are calm when I know I'm starting or ending with a story of my family. And I think it really allows you to connect like, well, who is the real person behind all of this? And I think we all have it is like, everybody is actually curious to know, like, who are you really? Like, are you really this person, whoever it is, a guy, gal around this thing? But once they know you personally, oh, you have kids too. Oh, they play tennis, or they would write a book, and now you're connected at a much different level, deeper level than anything else. Anything I could put on a slide could be the best data element that I drop in, but they will probably not remember everything, but they will remember, as people say, how you made them feel. And I feel like that's part of, I think, what we're all called to do.
Yeah. I think that's really awesome. I've really enjoyed following all that stuff over the recent months since we've connected more. Speaking about what you're called to do, you and I share a common faith, and I love. I guess it was at lunch back in March, and you shared that story with me, and I was surprised because you blessed our food at lunch, and I was like, oh, tell me your story, and I loved hearing it. I wrote a book a couple of years ago that published last year, but it was a lot about like how my beliefs and my faith in Jesus affected my decisions at work, I would say, or my or prioritization or any of those kind of things. And so I love that when you went went there and went bold, and I know you've been bold with that publicly as well. I'd love to hear, however much of like a high level part of that story you want to share here. Most important on kind of like what your sort of beliefs are, but how they've impacted the way that you work every day.
I'll tell you a shorter version of our lunch story around this, and then really get into the area of how it's actually impacting, because that's really truly the transformation. That's really important for me to experience and share. I remember when I was building the last company, not having roots, not having foundation around why I'm doing what I'm doing. And so it was more about, I'm an immigrant, it's an American dream, I'm coming here, I'm trying to build and make something out of it. So, that pretty much was the driving factor for it. But it didn't have foundational. And I've said this publicly, I've made really bad, dumb decisions as a founder. Like I was not kind to my co-founders at my last company. I made decisions that I'm not proud of, quite frankly, but I didn't really have a North Star of what that really looks like. It just meant to me like, well, I guess it's a tough business, right? Like I would just let that roll off my sleeves without really understanding like, whoa, that actually does impact others, and it is much bigger than that. And so I didn't really have that foundational element of it. And I don't know if that resonates with a lot of people, but I felt like the circles that I was running in, that was pretty common at that time. And then as my wife and I came to faith, we realized that, whoa, there's a higher authority than us that actually gives us that North Star, right? So when you think about Jesus' 2 commands of like, love God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength, and then love your neighbors yourself, you really have to take a moment to realize that he's calling for love, which is why my call sign is always love. The sign off is because it's a reminder to myself that that's what we're called to do, is to love unconditionally others. And it's going to be tough and hard and not always, but it is something that we're called to do. So it's a practical thing that we do at work at Go-to-Market Partners is I would always say, if I'm giving feedback, I would always say to them, hey, this is a love, not like conversation. And now everybody understands what that is. It's like, hey, I don't want to have a like conversation with, hey, it's okay, you're fine. And I'm going to have a love conversation, which is, I'm going to give you some direct feedback, right? You're going to feel it. But it is love, because if I love you, then I will take the time to give you direct feedback, and I will challenge on certain things, but we have to understand this is a love conversation. And it kind of puts people like, it takes a moment for everybody to get like, wait a minute, what are we talking about over here? But it has allowed people to now use that very commonly on the teams. They would say, hey, I need to have a love, not like conversation. And it disarms people. It gets people in the right mindset. Okay, you're not trying to put me down. You're trying to help me over here. And we have a disagreement and we have something to work through, but it's a love conversation. So it's a practical way that I'm trying to use that as in our business right now.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. It's another framework. I'm going to write that down. Love, not like. So that's good. But I do love that. And that doesn't work in a silo. That works because you've built authentic trust and relationship with them through time, so that when you give that love conversation, they know, okay, this might be some tough feedback, but I know it's coming from the right place. I know it's coming because he cares. He wants to make me better. He wants to make us better. He wants to fix something. So that's pretty incredible.
Yeah, and I'm on the worst side of it too. Like I would say, if people have done on the team said, hey, Sangram, this is a love, not like conversation. And that is like, oh, okay, I'm going to grab a seat and chair. But the day that happened, I felt like, okay, we just hit an amazing landmark as a team, because now somebody on the team is actually coming to me and giving me feedback, which I needed at that time really well. So I think it has to come both ways. And it has to if that doesn't happen, then it's a one-way track. It doesn't go further.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, and your North Star point, I think, is really sound. I think sometimes, especially like in a founder situation where you were talking about, your whole world can get wrapped up in this company, right? It's, you live it, you breathe it, you think about it nonstop. It doesn't turn off especially when it's your own company. But then to realize that your identity is so much more than the founder of a company or a businessman or whatever, that there's more to that. I think this is pretty powerful. And I think it helps put, stress or decisions in context a little bit. You kind of have on the, just the range of where do I want to put this, right? Like we always talk about at work, is this PR or ER, right? Like, is this kind of is this just a PR problem, or is this like we're in the emergency room and this is stress?
Yeah, I love that.
Put things in the side, right? PR side a little bit, I think. which is good. So
it certainly helped me, Kelly. I think it is also, I've also learned through this journey of faith, and now that I'm building this company with that as the root, so everybody on the team knows, we have a daily update that we put out in Slack, and I always have those three things I'm grateful for, and it always starts with something about Jesus, something about family, and something about work. So I'm helping everybody recognize that is my order, and I'm giving you everybody permission that should be your order. It's not work and then family and then God. It's like God and then family and then work. So it's an order on purpose and intention around it. But it has also helped me personally to realize that I think for the most part, and I think most of us know what the right thing to do is. It's never, I think as we get older and as you've seen enough things, letting go of people or hiring the right, for the most part, we kind of know what the right thing to, how to handle those things. The question really is, given the faith and given knowing what Jesus did, is like, am I going to do it? Am I going to do the right thing? And that has been the question now I've learned to ask myself, am I going to do the right thing? How far am I from the standard of doing the right thing? Because we all kind of know what the right thing is to do in any situation, to forgive, to give a pass, to have the love not like conversation. Am I going to do it? And that fundamental question, Kelly, has rocked my world of how I make decisions. And it has been tough. It's been hard, but forcing myself, asking the question, am I going to do the right thing, has been so much better. Initially, I didn't even know without the North Star what the right thing to do is. Now I think I know. The question is, am I going to do it?
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's pretty powerful. I think I noticed that my am I going to do it is yes more often when I'm sort of in the zone, when I'm in the word. If I go, like, there are times of work and life are so crazy and it stretches out that time in between, and I can feel like my stress rising, my probably temper getting shorter, like things like that show up at work, and I'm like, man, I need to ground here because I'm getting too far away from doing the right thing now. So
yeah, it has helped. It has helped me in the toughest thing, but especially when we have to make tough decisions when it comes to people, financials, and all that. Am I going to do the right thing?
Awesome. Well, I know we talked about your sort of content producing on LinkedIn, and then now about your story. You've been pretty public in sharing this story. I drop it in little bits, and it's amazing the response you get. They'll just kind of grab onto that word. If you say faith, or you say Jesus, or you say God, people be like, oh, they kind of jump on that. How has the response been to you? Positive, negative, neutral? What's been people's reaction to you going there?
Yeah, I think most people are like, first of all, they're like, wait a minute. So this is not a church thing. Like, this is like, people realize that it is not something as a religious thing. It is something that I'm trying to live, and I'm not perfect. Nobody is. And I'm trying though. So I think it people are realizing that, people would have called me and said, I always thought that you just go to church and that's another God and that's another thing. And I'm like, no, I need it. I believe in Jesus. I'm trying to emulate my life, and I'm trying to help lead our family in that direction. So it's a very personal. This is how I lead my team. But this is at the same time I lead my family. When we have this mission statement that everybody on the family has it on the wrist that says, Vajres always make it through with God's love, grace, and truth. And that came directly because I felt like we needed a mission statement, just like a company needs a mission statement. Like, you can imagine running a company without a mission or a vision or core values. Like, we can't even imagine. But here we are leading a family with 2 products, like 2 kids, and having no mission statement, no core values. Like, how I don't know how people make decisions. So to me, this has become so foundational, fundamental. So I have so many people ask, like, well, can you help me come up with a mission statement for our family? And then I go back to like, well, what's your North Star? Our North Star has been that we want to make sure that 20 years from now, our kids would remember us or want to come home because we have been able to pour love, grace, and truth in them in every decision that we've made. And so those are our core values. That's what we're trying to teach them. So every time we have to discipline anything, we're not thinking of disciplining, we're thinking of discipling them. And so when there's a huge difference between those two things, and it's hard, it takes time, but it also requires a North Star. So a lot of times people would come and it inevitably becomes back into the question, like, what is your North Star? And Kelly, it's regardless of what everybody's faith system is or how they're brought up. And for me, I was brought up in a completely different set of principles, and I became a Jesus follower. I feel like the answers are so empty. Sometimes I feel like they're scary, and I think it allows them to see, well, there is a hope, there is a way, and it actually helps people to go back, and they don't have to accept Jesus. They have to find what that North Star is, and hopefully, I hope they would find Jesus, because that's what I found. But that's what I enjoy in a lot of the conversations. I have CEOs of companies come to me. I have early people in their career come to me because they would see love and they would see some of these things. And I enjoy those conversations so much, because I think if anything, if that gets them people to seek and find a North Star, they're just going to be a better person just because of that.
Yeah, that's amazing. My old boss used to say, there's something different about you. What is it? Like you have like an inner peace that I don't know what that is. Like, tell me about that. And so we'd have lots of conversations, but I think it's one of those intangibles people see in you, and the way that you communicate, whether you're sharing your beliefs directly or just the way that you carry yourself and the way that you make decisions. I think people are seeing that. So I think that's pretty incredible. Thank you for sharing. All right. We are probably running long here, so I will stop us. One more question. What is, outside of all the stuff we just talked about, what's one fun fact about you that most people don't know?
And one of the fun things that I do is I've played guitar most of my life. I kind of stopped playing in a while, and I think I'm actually trying to pick that back up. So most people cannot imagine me probably holding a guitar and playing, but that was part of something that I really enjoyed since the very childhood. Yeah.
You sing along with it or just play?
And you don't want me to sing along. Actually, Brian, we talked about Brian used to be in a band. He has like 5 guitars in his house. He can sing. He actually has an account now on Spotify. He composes music. So it's really, really fun to do that. We got to have him do that maybe at a Better Together event.
That's perfect. That sounds like a good nighttime activity or kick off to karaoke night or something. I love it.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Well, if people want to hear more about you and your story and follow you, where's the best place to find you? Sounds like just LinkedIn.
LinkedIn. That's the only place I'm on. And I try to engage and comment through. And I think this is how we build relationships and connections.
Awesome. Well, cool. Well, folks, be sure to reach out. Thank you so much for coming today. I totally loved the conversation. I've been looking forward to it all week. So I'm so glad we got to do this.
Thanks, Kelly. It was a pleasure.
Awesome. And folks, thanks for listening. Thanks for joining. We'll see you on the next episode of the Next Gen CMO podcast.